This is Leisha Holmes, and I'm your host on the Recruiters Recruitment Podcast. And I cannot believe it has taken me the best part of about 3 seasons to invite this incredible recruitment professional onto our podcast. This person will probably need no introduction to certainly a lot of my client base anyway, and I'm going to let her do the full introduction into her background. But this is Alison Humphries, who is a very well-respected non-exec director, strategic advisor, and owner of Recruitment Leadership, and also fellow podcaster. Welcome to you today, Alison. How are you?
Oh, thank you, Leisha. I'm well, and thank you for that really kind introduction.
You're welcome.
I'm sure there are loads of people who don't know me, so I'll just quickly sort of position myself. I now work, as you say, as a non-exec director and board advisor to working with directors and owners of recruitment businesses. It's based on a recruitment career that has started in 1985.
Wow.
I've during that time I've covered, pretty much you name it, I've done it. International statement of works and master service provision on top of my traditional recruitment across a multiplicity of sectors. And more recently, I was MD of a business called Liquid Personnel, which people in the North will tend to know, when we took it through to a sale. So yeah, delighted to be here, and I just love talking recruitment.
I know we both share such a passion, don't we? And I know that even before I press record, we could have talked the hind leg off a donkey. That's the truth. But you can see, hopefully, you'll all be start listening with your pen and paper ready to take some notes, because I know that whatever Alison shares, generally, when I've had the pleasure of being a fellow judge with you for the Recruiter Awards for the amazing Recruitment magazine, it's just the most incredible honour, isn't it, to do that? That's how we've really got to know each other, I think, as well. But this is why I've asked you on, because first of all, you don't look like you've been in recruitment since 1985, but I'm a little bit behind you, 1998. Keep talking, lovely. It's that skylight. Your recruitment career is phenomenal, but what you'll have seen over the last few decades will probably just be breathtaking. But is it possible to pinpoint kind of 3 major things, because I like the number 3, that you think have been monumental in where we are right now in 2023 as a recruitment industry?
Oh, okay. As an industry, right. So, first point, and I hope this isn't just a recency error, but I do think that the pandemic has fundamentally changed the way the industry works. If you look at all the technologies that we now use, they were all available before the pandemic. You could have been regularly doing video interviewing way before the pandemic, but people didn't. So we do sometimes need to be really shoved into change like that. And and of course, adoption of the same things by all our clients and candidates, that's really key. But if you look at, for example, how people are doing eligibility checks now, that came through because of the pandemic. If you look at how they're doing psychometrics, fundamentally we've changed, and that requires a whole different set of skills. And along with that, I'd probably put automation. I don't think we've even begun yet to see AI and its impact on recruitment. I think that won't become clear probably for another 5 years at least. But automation, I'm blown away by the amount of recruitment tech there is available now.
Unbelievable, isn't it?
It's some of it is very impressive. I think where we're at the moment is a bit of a mess, if I'm really honest, because what so many businesses I know have been forced to do is they've learned about things, single-use type applications, and they've seemed affordable, which is remains a terribly important factor.
Absolutely.
So they've bolted them on and bolted more on and more on. And I only have to look through the P&L of some of the companies I work with and see just how many subscriptions and licenses they're paying for.
Right.
And then talk to the people on their sales floor and find out just how little some of them have, little use some of them are actually making of it.
Right.
Yeah. So there's a great it can really easy for a business owner to just sign up to something and then go, there you go, guys, this will rock your world. And actually people don't have the time to change their habits or incorporate it into their processes, or indeed sell it effectively to their clients.
Yeah, there's a disparity between the two. It's like joining the gym and then just not actually getting out of the house to go to it, isn't it? I think I think it's probably very realistic what you just said there. And there's always something new and shiny. And as recruiters, we are salespeople, we like to be sold to. But I think it's really interesting that from your objective viewpoint, obviously in a similar way that I have an objective viewpoint, that the application of it, you know, it could actually totally transform somebody's business, couldn't it? So that was two things, right?
Good spot. Yes.
Yes.
I was just mulling over while you were talking there. What's my third? Do you know what it is? I think it's the okay. So there's kind of part A and part B to this.
Okay.
Third point. The recruitment industry, you know, used to just be agencies, and now it's a whole ecosystem. You know, so we have you know, substantial, very successful RPO businesses. We have executive search. We have businesses that do volume, temp and contract, and you know, they all coexist. Really well. You know, and we have not reached the lid of how much how many businesses the recruitment industry can absorb. The tied to that, bizarrely, what I have seen over many years, decades in fact, is actually far better cooperation between recruitment businesses, you know, sharing experience and wisdom. So if I look at some of the networking groups, you know, WhatsApp groups, digital groups that I'm involved with, you would not have seen this level of openness and sharing even 10 years ago. No way.
I agree.
So, you know, I think it really highlights the importance of referrals and recommendations, because people are on these networking groups are always looking for, like, has anyone got a solution to this? Has anyone tried this? What do people think of this app? And so on. And, you know, people understand we're not all in direct competition. So they're willing to share, they're open. And that leads to, you know, the increasing, if it's not overstating it, the increasing wisdom of the whole industry.
I agree. Absolutely.
And, you know, we're not in a, we don't all think that, I have this secret that I've got to guard jealously, because we appreciate that we're all actually trying to occupy some slightly different part.
Everything that you've just said, I echo from the top of the mountains, Alison. You know, the collaboration that I've personally and professionally witnessed, let's say specifically since COVID maybe, but I think we could go back a few years, you're right, but maybe over the last sort of 5 years or so, but significantly since the pandemic, has been mind-blowing. And I think it truly has transformed the whole mindset of our industry, that there is enough business for everybody. That's the truth. And that we are elevating our external perception, which I think we all have a responsibility to do, which is that we are not seen as these, you know, transactional, you know, careless salespeople that just don't care, and they're just money driven. Actually, we've made totally transformed the perception.
When I read things online that say, "Oh, we're not like your typical recruitment agency," I just want to roll my eyes.
Me too.
Not bringing down the industry. You're part of it, and actually, you know, it's a weird thing. I have never met someone who actually says, "Yeah, I set up a really rubbish recruitment agency."
I'm terrible. I don't care about anything. I'm totally unique. No, I know. I mean, look, what makes you unique? Nothing really actually makes you unique. You're unique because you are you as a human being. So I think it's the disingenuous narrative that has followed our industry around for far too long. And I think that's where LinkedIn specifically actually has become such an authentic, in theory, authentic marketplace to truly show yourself, because of personal brand, actually, and that level of collaboration. And you see, you know, these posts, can anyone recommend? And you see everyone jumping in, and it's like, they can't do enough. So I think that's been, for me, I think I'm really passionate about your third one. That was part A, right?
Yeah, so the part A was about the whole ecosystem, and part B was the collaboration.
Yeah. Right, you see, I'm just checking. I have actually written that down, actually, because I think that's going to make a great title for this. No, I think that's fantastic. And look, thank you that was putting you on the spot a little bit, because I imagine there's so much that you've learned, and that obviously you've taken businesses on their journey. So one of the main reasons I wanted to invite you on is because there's a massive irony in the recruitment world. And I'm gonna be a little bit contrary with what I'm about to say, because given it's my day job to recruit for recruitment businesses, sometimes we get it wrong and we're not great at hiring for ourselves. Why do you think that is? And then in your experience, what can leaders do to ensure, whether it's through using things like data, possibly using automation, to protect our own attrition rates and ensure that we've got good succession planning?
Right. Okay. So what do we get wrong? Let's start there, because it's always easier to pick holes, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. So the first point I'd make is that very often people I meet are actually unclear what skills and aptitudes they are interviewing for. So they just get a feeling about people, that kind of thing. And if you had a client that gave you that as feedback on your candidate, you wouldn't accept it. You'd say, well, what specifically? How is that relevant to the job? So I think that's the very first thing, is defining what in fact are the behaviors and aptitudes and very base level of knowledge or education, because actually there's no correlation between that and success in recruitment that I can see. But being really clear of what we're interviewing for. And for my money, there are some things that go across every sector of recruitment that I've been involved in. And those are high level of fluid intelligence, I'll come back to in a second.
Okay.
Strong goal orientation with an action element. Yeah.
Okay.
So without action, a goal is just a dream, right? So I'm actually looking for evidence that people have set themselves stretching goals and then taken specific action to work towards it. Case in point, anybody who comes in and goes, I've always wanted to work in recruitment. Right. When did you make that decision, and what exactly did you do about it from then?
Yeah. I'm laughing, Alison, because I get that feedback. Not about my candidates I hasten to add, because I don't do the junior market, but seriously, because my friend works in recruitment and they've done nothing about it. Yeah. Carry on. Sorry.
Right. So what else? Okay. So good communication and rapport, and specifically, because that's a big, and it means anything to anybody. Specifically, I'm looking for people who can rapidly absorb information in a dialogue and adapt their responses accordingly. People who can not only listen, but show they've been listening. So that's another one. I'm going to say it. Money motivation is important.
Of course it is.
You can be goal orientated without being money motivated. And there are, actually that has to motivate you. It's lovely to be able to say that in the end, if you're successful, money doesn't matter of itself anymore, but it is still a way of keeping score.
Of course it is.
And so it helps in that respect. What else? Interestingly, this one, an ability within reason to follow process.
Right. Yeah.
So we actually work within quite a lot of constraints. And if you look at the traditional, those who are familiar with psychometrics will know what I mean by a lazy Z profile. And those who don't, just Google it. It's a really well-known term. In the earliest stages of the recruitment industry generally, and in very early stages of a new business, we tend to look for people who have low compliance, who are driven by finding ways round the rules or by dodging processes and just keeping their eyes on the prize.
Yeah.
But actually, as the industry has matured, and probably also because we've become more dependent on good quality data.
Agreed.
Having some ability to follow a process, like recording, your calls and action in a CRM, has become more important.
Yeah.
And I'm basing that actually on having been able to track performance from how people interviewed and profiled at entry level through to their performance over several years. So there's point one. Be really clear about what you're interviewing for. And if there is more than one person involved in that hiring decision, more stages, then make sure you all agree on the standards of the evidence you're looking for.
Okay. Yeah.
So, I mentioned money motivation there. I don't accept that when someone, let's say, a new entrant to the industry says, well, I did some fundraising at university because I was told I had to, and it involved me sitting in an office for 3 hours making calls to alumni of the university and just going, hey, how are you today? That's not money motivation. So people who've gone out and got themselves a job, and I mean, no matter what degree you're doing.
Yeah,
One of my
absolutely.
sons has a medical degree and he could have a job during it. So
yeah.
that's a level of a standard of evidence, if you like, that you've got to agree with. So that's my first point.
Okay.
Next, really, really important one. People get it wrong because they don't reference the candidates they take on.
Okay. Who are we talking about? Where are we referencing them from and when?
Right, good point. Okay, so the obvious choice is most recent employer. Clearly, there's that has to wait until you've made an offer if they're currently working there.
Correct.
And many of the businesses I know who do this actually just delegate it like an tick box admin exercise.
Right. So it's just a form that they're sending over or something. Oh, they're just sending a form or something. It's not wasted opportunity, isn't it?
This is so important. This person could make the difference between literally bringing your business down, or totally accelerating growth. So I would always encourage the manager or director of a new hire to take up that reference verbally. I've met with some people who are reluctant to do this. They go, well, perhaps they had a bad relationship with that person, or that person's annoyed that they've lost a good biller or whatever it might be. What? I trust myself to make that judgment call about the person.
You know it's subjective, right? If you're taking the reference, it's subjective because you might have had somebody in the past that might say that about you, for example. What are your thoughts on a more 360 approach? So maybe getting one of the recruiter's clients or candidates or colleagues to give a reference. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I love it for experienced people.
Yeah,
and I would just say that I would pick them myself. If somebody had a lot of experience, I would say, right, okay, I want you to come up with a client beginning with P, if they've worked for a long time, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Everybody can have a personal chemistry with one or two clients. The question is more whether they have respect for you and enough to even agree to give you that kind of.
I agree. It's very telling, isn't it? And it's always the ones who are reticent to give the references at all. We're talking experienced here because obviously that's what I do. I only deal with experience. There's a reason for that, and you can say, well, maybe there's the one occasion where you've left and it's not been on good terms, but what happened at the time before that? And like you say, I think you have to, when it comes to references, they are in theory subjective, but you make your own judgment call with it. And how open are you about it?
Yeah, well, I absolutely agree. And I would also say that big alarm bells for me will go off if somebody has been through 2 or more recruitment jobs and can't put me in touch with anyone.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I'm thinking, oh, right, okay, that's not good. You may have to triangulate it a little bit, but I'm stunned that so few of us actually, go to the trouble of doing this reference thing, because it's good networking as well.
I agree.
So that's my second point. I think the third point I'd make is about overselling the job and its tangible benefits. So we've got very big as an industry on providing lots of not just reward but recognition, and oh my God, I mean, the improvements to working conditions and fixed benefits since I started.
Oh my God. Absolutely. 20 days holiday, that was it.
Yeah.
And you had to save those for Christmas, Alison.
Yeah, I started in recruitment and I made a choice. I took a massive pay cut and I went on. Now, bear in mind, this was the mid-80s, but I accepted a base salary of, I think it was £3,500. And if you put that into an online calculator, that will tell you it's only £10,500 now. But I was in the higher tax rate within my first 6 months, you know.
Wow.
So
Wow.
it was a different world. Anyway, well, actually, it wasn't that different. It was, my point is things have massively improved.
Yes.
And we spend a lot of time talking about those things. So it's a part of the overselling that, you know, I hear people saying, yeah, we do loads of training, but it's not actually structured training. It's not what
it's not what the candidate needs.
A new hire will recognize as training. And I think I would like to see a bit more emphasis on the job in itself being rewarding, rather than just, you know, you can have a day off if you've achieved your targets, or you know, we'll give you you know, we take you off to Ibiza every quarter or whatever it might be, because those things in the end will only motivate short-term behavior.
Yes, agreed.
I think we should sell the job in itself. And to me, I'm gonna get all sanctimonious now about this, but to me, what we do remains really valuable. Work is dead important to people, and helping people find the right job or the right employer can change their lives.
Quite literally. You're not being sanctimonious at all. I always say it's a privilege to be a recruiter. You're taking people on a career journey, and whether that's a short-term contract, whether it's a long-term career move. And I think that should shroud everything else that we're motivated by. All the elements that you've said. I mean, I always advise my clients, you know, just to corroborate what you're saying there, is I wouldn't go so far as to say like paint a bleak picture or give the warts and all, but make it realistic. You know, let them see what a day in the life of, you know, what's it like here on a bad day? What happens if I don't hit my target one month? You know, what will happen then? Because I think I would rather somebody accepted a job on that basis than, oh my God, you know, look at our top achievers. But, you know, that's all great. But like you say, what is the actual job? What will I actually be doing day to day?
Yeah.
Really good.
I think so. The other one I really can't let go is that onboarding is very, very often still really quite unstructured. I've even you know, known people hire staff and then book a holiday for the first 2 weeks they're there. No plans. People have high expectations these days, and particularly if they are coming, you know, for example, into their first career job, then to say that you'll get lots of training does not mean just sitting next to somebody listening to one end of a telephone conversation.
No, definitely not. I agree with you totally. So managing expectations, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that probably covers the biggest things that people get wrong. Understand the profile you're hiring for. Yeah, have a process that's evidence-based, including referencing. You mentioned more 360 referencing. And then third, this three P's. We
like it.
Profile, process, proposition. Can I just talk about that for a minute?
Of course you can, because that leads very nicely on to, I was going to talk about EVP, so we can tie this all in.
Right.
Absolutely, okay, brilliant.
So what we've just agreed, I think, just between you and I, so we've sort of put the world to rights. The proposition needs to actually sell the job, not just the benefits. The other side of this coin is that you can't be all things to all people.
No, definitely not.
So in my book, I tell a story about a business owner who was really quite impressed with you know, some of the posts he was seeing going out on LinkedIn about the, you know, the ESG work that some other recruiters were doing. And so, you know, he decided to go at it big guns. And what he did was he delegated it to his marketing department. And what they organized really put me in mind of those, you know, those wear your own clothes days that you used to get at school, where there was a lot more fun. Well, I was at an all-girls school. I don't know.
Me too.
But my God, there was a lot of fuss around what clothes you wore. But in the end, it raised very little, and it was all to do with the charity. The purpose of that charity, or learning anything about, any increasing your awareness at all. And so he realized that after a while, had to feel it firsthand, that it was just empty. It wasn't motivating the staff, and it didn't have much of an impact in terms of image either. So my point here is, it's just one example of, stop just thinking that because someone else offers X, you have to do it too.
Totally.
I have had considerable success in hiring, been lucky, but for businesses that we know what we are. Okay, so in one business we had a real long hours culture, and but what we weren't doing was selling ourselves on, you can have Friday off, or work really short hours. We were selling ourselves on, do you want to make a lot of money in a career where there's a constant demand for staffing. So if I go back to my very early career, which was with Hays, even before it was Hays, the point there is, they're not selling themselves on, we'll pay you a high basic. They're selling themselves on, look, it's Hays, it's a huge brand.
Yes,
that generates business.
The phone will ring for you in a business like Hays, and the reality is that that's very rarely going to happen, I think, in terms of what you said. But I agree with what you're saying around, I mean, there's obviously so many posts, and everybody talks about what their EVP actually is, and I could not have said it more succinctly than you've said there. You can't be all things to everybody, and I think you have to, we use the word authentic all the time, don't we now? But I think you just have to, as a business owner, decide, this is where we sit. And it's not saying you're not being adaptable, you're not evolving with everything else, with automation and AI. We're not saying that, but you've got to be true to what your business stands for. And if you are wanting to be like mine, I make no bones about it, it is a boutique business. I have no ambitions to grow it. I'm all about profit and about freedom. I get to pick and choose who I work with. I get to choose to have a day off if I want to. I couldn't do that if I scaled it up and went big, but I'm not trying to be anything else. So I live and breathe that ethos, but in a reverse way.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you. So I think that, in summary then, your EVP has to be clearly stated, and it's fine if it's different from the next guys. If you're clear about it, you will attract the people who are motivated by that EVP.
I totally, it's a bit cheesy, a bit cliche, but the whole law of attraction, that's the ethos of the law of attraction, that if you are looking to attract, if I was looking to attract other like-minded people to my business, then I will. But if I'm looking, if people came to my business because I'm trying to pretend I'm something else, then it's not going to ever work out. And I think that's where the whole empire crumbles. I really think that's the case. So you've got so much value that you can add to people, and no wonder you're so well regarded, Alison, and you're so much fun to get to know. And I'm sure that loads of people are enjoying listening, and maybe this is the first time they've listened to you. But if you were to give sort of leaders this sort of final piece of advice in terms of attracting, if they could have this viewpoint now as saying, like, we want to attract the next person, what do they need to do today to attract their next best person to their business?
Right. Okay. So first step, review your onboarding and learning and development. So I know that might seem after, but actually your onboarding and your initial learning and development are part of your EVP.
Yes.
So the more structured, documented it is, the more you can actually show people, look, if you join us here, we have such a structure that we can pretty much guarantee that your earnings will be this, and your growth rate and your progression will look like this. And by the way, here's someone who will genuinely unprepared, who will genuinely vouch that this is true.
Definitely.
So that's God, there's a whole other podcast there, Alicia. Just
I know there is. I know
what learning and development should look like. Really important. So that's one thing. The second one is that we've spoken already about the need to be clear what you're looking for. Train everybody who's involved in actually, do you know what? I'm going to go further than that. Train everybody to interview for evidence, even if they're not involved in your internal recruitment.
Well, it'll make them a better recruiter in their job.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if you if you can train people to do this for internal hiring, they will take it away. And the next time a client says to them, I need some, finance recruiter says, I need someone with really good communication skills. Don't just go, oh, right, I know what that means. Because, he might be thinking really carefully laid out memorandum, and you're thinking charisma, great public speaker, and you're just going to hire two totally different people. So interview for evidence, train people, make sure that, and part of that is also making sure that they are giving consistent answers about your EVP and about what people's experience will be. So good example of this, I was talking to a friend of mine who'd been interviewing for a fairly senior position within the recruitment industry. And there were several stages in this. There were, I think, about 4 stages. And he actually asked some of the same questions to different people.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And got radically different answers.
Oh dear.
Not just about the looser stuff like what's the company's strategy, but things like what's your success rate and attrition rate, and the answers varied by as
wow
much as 30%.
That's quite alarming.
Look, let's be honest, we do all have a tendency, that's too wide. Many people in our industry are quite inclined to make stuff up on the spot, and they're quite good at sounding really confident.
Yes.
But what they don't realize is that there's a context. The other person has maybe heard other stories.
Otherwise, yeah.
Yeah. So I think that consistency is really important.
Totally agree.
And then don't try to be all things to all men. Be clear about what you're good at, and if there are trade-offs, what they are. Can I have a fourth?
You can, of course you can, because it's you.
So use data, use information. So we've talked about referencing. I am a huge fan of the proper use of psychometric.
Yes.
Just want to be clear about this. So many people I know abuse psychometrics. So what they do is they haven't properly defined what the behavioral preferences are, or even the fluid intelligence level that is required for success. They wait until the very last stage of the selection process. Then they ask someone to sit a test, or a questionnaire, I should more accurately say. And then they read it, and without comparing it to like an ideal profile.
There's no benchmarking.
Yeah. So if you're familiar with some of these reports, a lot of them say they use quite guarded language. So they might say could be, maybe, tendency to, that kind of thing. And sometimes it's highlighting things that are actually not a success factor in the role. But so that's the abuse of psychometrics. The best possible use is, of course, to have a clear idea. And I've been in a position where I've been able to do this because I had enough historical data to have a clear idea what the broad parameters are that have correlated with success, with average performance, and with below an acceptable level of success in the past. And so for example, with fluid intelligence, I was able to kind of say, it's not setting a mark, but it was able to say, look, broad indicator, if it's below this level, they're going to struggle. So let's have a look at what else they've got going for them.
Yeah.
So that and the referencing that we've spoken about, and
definitely.
Yeah, use data, really important.
Without a shot, we've got it. So use it, but use it properly. I think that's the final caveat from a very wise, incredibly knowledgeable recruitment. You are the unicorn of the industry, and we just, I love the way you describe as an ecosystem, and I just think I can't wait for where our industry is going. And then we just, it's down to people like you that we elevate the perception internally and externally. So it's just been a joy to have you on the show today, and thank you so much for joining us. We love you on the Recruiters Recruitment Podcast, Alison. Thank you so much.
It's been my pleasure. Thanks very much.